You are watching
So
Xirtus.
right here in December, right? This is December on this side. See, you're in Cancer, right? And
Hmm.
then June, you're over here, you're in Capricorn. So when you're in winter solstice, you're actually closest to Cancer, which a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
people don't really understand. And when you're in summer, right, you're actually closer to Capricorn. You're closer to the opposite thing. It's just, you face that during the night and they've made it so it's like during the day. So when you're looking across past the sun, you would see Cancer over here. That's why they would name it Cancer,
Oh
right?
wow. Okay, so the idea is yeah, because of course the sun is influencing you, right? Daylight.
Yes. Yeah, so this person, let's say whatever zodiac sign it is, right? They're sitting somewhere. Obviously we're not on a perfect circle, it's what, an elliptical or whatever. It gets closer to the
It's pear
sun.
shape. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So we're closer to the sun. Just um like a lot of people have said this when you understand like grow lights and stuff like that. Like depending
Mm.
on the distance from the flame, also like when you light a lighter, you see different colors, right? Things burn at different rates at different heats, right? So at different distances, the color that comes off of that burning burns different materials, and so that color influences depending on what kind of bulb you're using during grow periods and stuff like that. You use a different bulb to mimic different seasons, right? So you're getting a different energy spectrum on the flame, how close you are to that flame or to that light or whatever, right? You can kind of trick it too. Like you can use the same bulb and just come closer, and you can kind of trick the plant to do different things also by just getting it closer to the flame in a way,
Mm.
right? So, you know, I reason it out that depending on where the Earth is, what angle and how close it is to the sun is really how we're getting influence from that sun and getting differences in the outcome of what happens on Earth and how people's personalities are, etc.
Yeah, of course. That makes way more sense.
Yeah. So yeah, because these all these stars are at different distances. That's another thing, is not only are you not close to whatever constellation system that it is, you're further away from it at a certain point, right? So it must not be that constellation. Like, let's just say you argue then, oh, yeah, they were just tracking it wrong, and you're actually influenced by the Cancer constellation because you're closer to that one, but they were saying it was Capricorn constellation, blah, blah, blah. Well, the thing is those stars aren't all together, aren't clustered together at different distances from each other. And each one of these constellations are at all different types of distances, and they're not split evenly how the zodiac shows, right? They're not in those areas. Like Pisces really
Totally.
comes over the top of Aquarius into Capricorn. So
And these are
it's just
moving mobiles, right? They're not even if
yeah.
it's in a spot for now, it doesn't mean it's going to be anywhere near that in the
Yeah, they're
future.
not clean cut pie, the
Yeah.
zodiac, right? It's not clear where those stars that are considered a part of that constellation
It's so
exactly
funny
are.
because
Yeah.
like a lot of the time, so I've used this as an argument like against astrology, but also for it to say, well, maybe we just bred ourselves to have a genetic disposition. You're like, oh, you're born at this time, so you're a Virgo, and so I will expect Virgo behavior from you, and you do that for 1,000 generations. It doesn't matter where the stars are now. You've genetically, epigenetically trained genes to be a certain way. But this is even more practical, which is that the actual environmental conditions that are happening on the earth during weather and season, that
Yeah.
those affect, I mean, duh, right?
Yes, and we know that certain crystals are uptaken into certain plant life that grows during certain seasons and stuff like that. And your mother is eating those.
Oh,
All mothers are eating
totally.
those. And
Yeah.
that's embedded into the child plus all the energies of that 9 months.
Yeah.
So it's
I mean,
more
you
of,
think
yeah,
about a
taking
plant again,
environmental.
right? You take a
Yes.
plant and you grow it in certain soil at certain times of year. You take
Yeah.
a plant like with hemp, you grow it with a grow light and you have a strobe light or something where it's changing the hours and days and it thinks that the apocalypse is coming. It becomes a hermaphrodite plant, right?
Yes. Yep. Exactly. Yes. We're very much influenced by the environment of our solar system. and it's not it the backdrop stars are not a part of our solar system, but they're a good way to mark things to understand aeons. And that's what I try to tell people is look, they were mapping out longer distance things with that, and that's why they wanted to show the precession of the equinox and what it meant. But that was just for ages. That wasn't for you to change your personality type. They always knew, I believe, if you really look into astrology really deeply, they always knew that you were gonna have your tendencies and all that stuff that was it was locked into the seasons that you're born, right? And this is why they've had to change a lot of stuff with timing and everything with, the Catholics and all this have done this because
Right.
they started slipping away from the season and then they had to backtrack and put it back into the seasons, right? So they
Hmm.
weren't doing it willy-nilly or trying to confuse us and stuff. They just weren't keeping track very well. And then there was many different time systems that were trying to track it. And
True.
so some of them moved it, some of them didn't. And so there's a lot of confusion there. But when you really start looking at why they moved it and ones that didn't move it and everything,
Well, during Napoleon's time, you had 10-day weeks, and winter became in summer. Like, of course, there's going to be. It makes
yeah.
perfect sense that it wasn't completely a conspiracy. Yeah, people
Yep.
are
Yeah.
idiots.
The groups that had really good astronomers and astrologers tried to keep the time more consistent, and they were locking things in at very least secretly into certain time periods to show that certain things were going to happen or have happened or will continue to happen in those time periods. They knew that they were very important things to keep track of. But you'll see over and over again, for whatever reason, my belief is that these cultures were threatened by an outside force constantly, all of them, right? And these are like empire models, and the characters that are behind these empire models are very dominating. I would say they get their aggressiveness and their dominant behavior and stuff like that from a part of this existence, which is a duality, which is the things that we call evil and stuff like that. It is supposed to test us and ride us and pressure us and try to capture information. And our job is to not let that happen, right? So there has to be something that lights the fire under our asses. There has to be something that's constantly chasing. It gives purpose in a way, right? So it's a necessary component, but if allowed to, it just keeps going. It tries to just keep dominating. And so it was trying to snuff out information, culture, all kinds of stuff, and then consume them and bring them into their model, their empire
Wow,
model.
that's pretty much yeah. Well, exactly.
Yeah. And so that's why a lot of them had to go to encoding this stuff secretly and then hiding, doing things uh, underground or just, putting it into symbology, telling it in stories where it's not quite clear. But
Right.
the more that,
Assimilation's a dangerous thing. If you assimilate everything, eventually
yep,
everything is lost. Right.
yes,
That's
exactly. Yeah. And it's supposed to do that because we probably wouldn't progress at all, right? And I think that the progressive movement and all these characters in history that have always talked about, yeah, it's all about progress, right? They're very elitist, they're very money-driven characters and stuff like that. And I
true.
think they're always tied into the empire, and they've been given the power to do what they're doing and they like it and they become money hungry and they work with it with that dominance power. And so that's all about progress, progress, progress. It doesn't matter if you enslave people. It doesn't matter what you do to them because it's about the end result. Like we have to get somewhere, right? They're the ones pushing towards sophistication in a way. So in a way, they're doing their job. They're helping us get closer to Sophia, to sophistication over time. But they have to have something that checks them. And goodness needs to check that. Goodness needs to go, well, yeah, you can just stomp us into the ground, though, if you just get let loose to do whatever you want. So there has to be a fighting back, but it's in an opposite way, right? It's with goodness, compassion, fairness. So there's always been that duality to life. And then I think that these, you know, astronomers and magi and stuff that were the good wizards, right, were embedding this stuff uh, into symbolic form, into story form, so they can pass it down. So, you know, that's something that takes a lot of conversations to pick apart, like who was a part of what,
Well, I mean, I think
because
you can imagine in any circumstance where there's going to be, we said assimilation, but there's also integration. And integration can be, great, but it could also be like 1,000 guys getting murdered between 200,000 guys in a battlefield. Like integration can be sloppy. And so if a
yeah,
woman's brewing club is being shut down because they're gonna burned at the stake because they think they're witches or something like that,
yeah,
or your new religious your the king's religious priests are going to replace your religious priests. I mean, there's just so many circumstances where your family have had these lessons for generations, and you're going to try so desperately to try to save them somehow, not necessarily to spread them, just to save them, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's they 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 consume what we discover. They're not very creative, obviously. What they are is they're dominant, right? And so things that uh, we discover, we research for our own good, they like to take it and use it against us. They use our psychology against us, right? It's a
Mm,
very it's an energy that likes to just manipulate, dominate, and use, right?
mm.
And, it's necessary, but, you know, I believe that we're coming to a point where it's either make it or break it. It's gonna break us, or we're gonna stand up and not allow that model to dominate anymore.